Hey everyone, my name is Martin Miles and I would like to welcome you to the fourth session of Sitecore Headless Development User Group. What we do here is we talk all the things headless development. It could be something related to Next.JS. It could be something related to maybe XM Cloud, Experience Edge, any tips and tricks or things you learn from your hard experience. Everything you have, you're welcome to share here. This is the entire spotlight for you. We're always looking for new speakers, and if you are the one, please let me know. Just direct message me and I will be able to post you on one of the next following events. So today we have two wonderful speakers, plus myself. What we have in the agenda is we have Frank Zutphen, who will talk you through about his experience of token replacement. But that's not typical SXA token replacement, but the headless SXA, something that works with Next.js. A concept that was brought from the legacy SXA. So we will see how to do things in the new world. Just in a minute, Frank will show us. We also have Anton Tishchenko here, who is talking about performance. And basically, what will be discussed is the decrease in the package size of your bundle. And if my memory serves me right, Anton managed to do that 4 times at least. So he will share the experience about how to do that, tips and tricks, how to minimize bundles with Next.js. Last but not least, that will be myself. I would like to introduce you to the new composable forms that have been recently released with sitecore-js Cloud. We've been waiting for forms for such a long time. Eventually they're here, they're nice, they're shiny. Of course, they have some potential child sickness, which we will also talk about, but in general, this is really a good product. So why not to take a look at the forms in action? But with that in mind, I'm passing the microphone to Frank.
All right, thank you, Martin. Thank you for the introduction. I'll share my screen then. Content replacement tokens in Headless SXA with Next.js. My name is Frank van Zutphen. I'm a solutions engineer based in the Netherlands. I work for the company Team Rockstars IT, so that's why the presentation is also Team Rockstars IT branded. And I've been working in the Sitecore space for roughly 5 years, with some in-between time during that 5 years. If you want to know more about myself, please don't hesitate to join the virtual Sitecore lunch every Friday, 12:15 p.m. So for my session today, the agenda is as follows. I'm going to talk a bit about MVC SXA content replacement tokens, about how I came about finding a solution for this in the headless SXA world. There is a possible solution in a non-XM Cloud way. So if you are working with, for instance, 10.3 XP, either Azure Pass or whatever, you could do it in a way, but that solution isn't suitable in the long term for XM Cloud. And then we're actually going to dive a little bit deeper into how I managed to get it working, which is a recommended practice for XM Cloud instances. A little side note, by no means it is perfect. It's a starting point. So if you want to mess about with it for your own and improve upon it, please do so. I'll share a link to my GitHub repo at the end of my presentation. Quick recap. In the MVC world, we had native access to content tokens with Sitecore SXA. It was just a node within the data structure, and you could just insert them here. Fish Tank has a nice blog about embracing the power of content tokens in Sitecore SXA, so please do check that out if you want to know more about how it would work in the standard practice. I'm going to be utilizing them in much the same manner with a small tweaks here and there. as we can see, a content token is just a key value pair. So this concept is going to circle back once we take a look at my implementation of it and why I made the decisions that I made. As I quickly hinted at, there is a possible solution when you are working in a 10.3 XP solution. It's C# code, and you could do some regex to actually match which type of tokens you would want to be replaced. And this is taken from a blog from Andre Andrade. And yeah, so what he did is he created a field somewhere in the system node with this GUID, and following stuff is happening, which then makes it work. He actually does get a separate field serializer, and he then uses a configuration patch in order to get this to work. Quickly want to underline that he is using field type 1 and 3. I could not for the life of me find what these IDs were referring to, and if you could actually utilize it in rich text as well. Obviously, the hint here is single line and multi-line, but if you would want to actually replace other fields as well, I wouldn't know how to go about it because I couldn't really understand where these IDs were coming from. But as hinted at before, this solution above is not suitable for XM Cloud. Why is that so? The recommended practice from Sitecore itself is that you do not make changes to platform code. Reason being is we're probably going to see a future where in the end XM Cloud is just a black box and customizations aren't going to be supported anymore, even though they are currently. I feel that the way forward is going to be no customizations on the XM Cloud platform code, and any solution you would want to either submit a feature request to Sitecore itself or make it work in your front-end code. But if this solution outlined before isn't suitable for XM Cloud, what then is? One word: plugins.
Yeah.
Sitecore has seems to have heavily invested in a plugin ecosystem, and one of those plugins would be a site resolver plugin, which you can find on the, if you are running Next.js, that is, within the lib site resolver index.ts file. There is a middleware plugin. So if you want to write your own middleware, you would implement middleware plugin. There's a couple of them. For instance, one is the personalized middleware, which we'll briefly take a look at the documentation from Sitecore a bit later on. The extract path plugin, it's a bit of a standalone one, but as you can see, there is multiple plugins. And this one is the money shot right here, is a plugin which hooks into the page props factory. This is the entrance which we really need in order to get this to work. So yeah, as mentioned, I really quickly want to take a look at the personalization in Next.js applications, because that was what initially set me going towards the direction which we're going to take a look at right now. So if we look at the cycle documentation, we can see that it talks about a Next.js middleware plugin, a React component, a page props factory plugin, and some environment variables for configuration. I thought that initially middleware would be the way to go, because I thought that just overwriting some token values would act much the same as personalization. Turns out middleware isn't the entry point we really need. Sorry. Because middleware, you don't really get access to the layout data, but just to the HTTP request and response objects. And we really do need access to the layout data in order to get this to work. I have spun up a quick demo site. It's one of the basic sites which you can spin up if you create a new site in XM Cloud. And let's, for instance, say that we would want to change this this title to something which is reusable in content. Here I'm going to outline one of the first architectural decisions I made when getting this to work. Is I put my, obviously I'll have to re-log in again. I took the architectural decision to put my replacer tokens inside the dictionary because if we look back at one of the slides in the presentation, it's nothing more than just a key value pair. And seeing as the basic site is in the theme of skating, I figured what better way than to just give a reference to one of the gold classics of long due past, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. If we then look at the text which we would want to change, the title is providing wholesale products basics to the best skate brands, which is the one I would like to ideally change. Normally, because I already have the content replacer token, you would just use $, Tony Hawk, and save. As you can see, within the data folder, we have no access to content tokens as what was before available in Sitecore MVC SXI. So that already gives you a hint that this out of the box doesn't work. And if I would refresh, we can see that there's just Tony Hawk displaying here. If we then go into the code, I've got three TypeScript files of interest. And as you can see, I've moved one around, and that is because for the sake of demo purposes, I wanted to show that out of the box it doesn't work. But I've just created a plugin which has an order of 4. Order of plugins is something, if you dive into the plugins ecosystem, is going to be important. I decided to order it 4th, which is the highest number in the plugins which is readily available in the page props factory. Normal mode and preview mode both have an order of 2, order of 1 actually. And the reason I actually wanted it to run as last is because I don't want the tokens being replaced in the experience editor, so that would be preview mode. And I would just want it to be replaced after all of the other Sitecore logic has executed. As you can see, I pass the dictionary items to the function replace content, and I've decided to put that into a functions folder within the lib as well. And here is where the magic happens. How I came about these signatures is circling back to the documentation from Sitecore, is that the personalize add-on was the first entry point for me. And if we look at the code from Sitecore itself, layout personalizer is the one which runs in order to get the layout data personalized. And yeah, if we look at the layout service data, component rendering, HTML element rendering, all that goodness, it's basically my code is akin to what Sitecore itself has written, with a few deviations here and there to make it work for my use case. I highly recommend you dig into this code as well if you want to run with what I've done. It's a starting point. It's by no means perfect. The reason being is that if we look at my function, obviously I have to replace each and every component which is rendered to the screen. So first we loop over all the placeholders, and then we loop over all the components, and then we check if the components have fields and if they have placeholders themselves, which then might again have components, etc., etc. At some point we have to make sure that the fields we're targeting are actually of the right type. So this idea is obviously akin to what Andre Andrade took in his approach, where he would filter down to only the single line and the multi-line text. In Headless SXA, we don't have the luxury of really narrowing down the fields in such a manner. So I've created some helper functions to check if it is a field, if it is an item, or if it is an item array. And based on that, we do replace a field, replace an item, or replace items, which is basically a loop. The is field, is item, and is item array check. The is field one is the most interesting one out of all of them, of course. And because in the replace content we have component fields, which is directly what we're getting back from the layout data response. And if we look down into that type definition, component fields is of either field or item array. And then we do some logic to see whether or not it is actually an object, if it is an array or not. And I want to know if the value is not undefined. And only then we are going to replace the content. In the solution I'm currently working on, we're using Leprechaun to do code generation. And I quickly want to take a look at that, because there we can actually take a look at what types of fields would now be considered valid for content replacements. I'm checking basically for a field of string in my code. So datetime would also technically get token replaced, but seeing as that a datetime field in Sitecore in and of itself is highly unlikely to contain a token, I don't feel very distressed in that regard that token replacement in a datetime field would get replaced. There's a couple of these types of fields which are marked obsolete by Sitecore itself. So HTML, rich text, field string. I think HTML from the top of my head is deprecated, but the default here is field string. Single line text, multi-line text, obviously available. Frame from the top of my head is a developer type. Text for sure is deprecated. Drop list, I think, deprecated as well. So this obviously is a guide as to what fields you would actually get. But as I said before, it's a starting point. If you can make it more narrow, please feel free to run with it. So the magic in the end happens if we look at the regex. It's the one where We start with the $sign and have a word which occurs, I think, 0 or 1 times, and then ends in a parentheses as well. And then in the end, let's hope that my container in the end has started to restart already. And if I do a refresh, it will just automatically work out of the box. Of course not. So quickly going to stop my container. For good measure, delete my next container. Restart my rendering host. Wait for a few seconds to come online. And as we can see, our content replacement token has just fired, and it's now rewriting the title to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Quick note here as well is that if we would double nest it, and we would accept and save and refresh, the regex only takes the innermost one. So it will only accept the $sign parentheses word parentheses closing, and the code, which you can take a look at in my GitHub repo as well. If you for somehow made a spelling mistake, and let's actually take those double parentheses out as well. As you can see, I intentionally made a spelling mistake here. And if I would refresh, you would see just a token appear, because if it cannot find the token replacement in the dictionary which you are passing to the plugin in and of itself, it's just going to return back what was configured. So this is just a sanitation check on the account of content editors to make sure that the content tokens which they're trying to utilize are actually there in the dictionary. If you go to GitHub and my profile, Frank van Zet, I've got a SXA replacement token, Exum Cloud Foundation head. I'll post this in. Yeah, that was it for now for me. Any questions from chat? Again, please.
Very smart idea of using dictionary. You don't need to add any additional requests.
Yeah, exactly. The reason is in normal mode plugin, I think the dictionary is already being created. So that was one of the other reasons as well to make sure that my plugin ran after all the Sitecore shipped stuff, because dictionary initialization has already happened. So I can just utilize what's already there and pass it to my own plugin. And yeah, exactly. I don't really want to have another round trip to the CM instance for getting that data back into my plugin. It's not needed. It's unnecessary, and ties in well into your subject of performance bottlenecks.
Today, I will tell you about analyzing JavaScript bundles on your Sitecore Next.JS project. Presentation itself is named as a performance crime and decreasing sitecore-js npm package in 4 times, but that's not the main goal of this presentation. The main goal of this presentation is to show you technique, how you can analyze your Next.js JavaScript bundle and how you can improve it. And as the example, we will use sitecore-js, and yes, we will really decrease it in 4 times for our case. Let me introduce myself. My name is Anton Tishchenko. I'm 6-time Sitecore MVP. I'm last year Sitecore Hackathon winner, and If you haven't registered to Sitecore Hackathon this year, I do recommend you to do it because you will have awesome 24 hours and you will really enjoy it. I work on Sitecore projects more than 10 years and I'm ex-Sitecore employee. Now I'm working for company XDST. We have more than 7 years of Sitecore development experience and did a lot of projects with different complexity. And now we focused on Headless and Cloud. And now let's move to the presentation itself. First of all, let's talk about bundlers. JavaScript bundlers, it's a specific function that allows you to join all your JavaScript modules into one JavaScript file. If you remember good old days, you need to put some JavaScript into your head tag, some JavaScript right after beginning of your body tag, and some JavaScript at the end of your HTML. And that's what how you optimized your page. And you have granular control. It required a lot of efforts, but control was bigger comparing to the modern frameworks. If we look on modern frameworks like Next.JS, they build everything by themselves. You don't worry anymore that you need to put some JavaScript into head, some JavaScript into body. That's everything done by Next.js. And in case of Next.js, it's not just meta framework on React. It's also a so-called hybrid framework. So part of your JavaScript code is added to client-side bundle. Part of your code is added to server-side bundle. And in case of Next.js, there also could be two server-side bundles, one for Node.js and one for Edge. So they are called in different runtimes if you host on hosting like Vercel or Netlify. But today we will be interested in client-side bundles because client-side bundles, they do affect your web page speed, your performance. And performance is essential to avoid losing some clients because your site is slow, it's loading not too fast. And that's nice that Next.js do a lot of magic. But do you trust Next.js and Webpack? And there is only one way to figure out can we trust it or not, is to analyze output. There is official way how we can analyze JavaScript bundles that are provided by Next.js. It is Next Bundle Analyzer package. So we can install it using usual command npm install Next Bundle Analyzer, and we can add the Bundle Analyzer plugin in a very similar way that Frank showed for his plugins. And in our case, if environment variable analyze will be set to true, it will provide us additional data about our bundle. We will see what's inside and we will be able to analyze it. So I took default Sitecore style guide site and decided to look what's inside it. And let's see. You can see this interesting graph, and there are a lot of information that we can take from it. So, for example, we can see that here in green, we have Next.js itself. At the bottom, we have React. At the right bottom corner, we have some things related to pages and some other small stuff. But as you already know the name of presentation, we will be focused today on sitecore-jss. So we are interested in this chunk. So let's zoom in and let's take a more precise look. So here we can see that this chunk contains, part of this chunk is sitecore-jss, and part is Next and some other stuff. Let's zoom up even more and look only on sitecore-jss part. What we can see here, we can see that it consists from GraphQL. Here is GraphQL, Axios, GraphQL request, some other small things like crossfetch, debug. We will not look on these small things today. We will focus on bigger parts. And we can see that only some small part is the code of module itself. And the bigger part of module are some packages, GraphQL Axios, GraphQL requests. Let's check if we are right with this, and let's use the service which is named Bundlephobia. If you haven't seen this service before, I really do recommend you to use it, because it will give you information what's actually is inside your package. And we can see that our analysis was right. The major part of sitecore-js package are other packages that are baked into sitecore-js. That's GraphQL, that's GraphQL requests, and that's Axios. And only small part of this package is code of package itself. And there are also some strange parts like debug. I don't think the debug should be about half of code of package itself. So it probably also can be improved. But let's think about GraphQL, GraphQL request, and the Axios. We know what these packages are about. All these packages are about communication between web services. And where, in case of Next.js sitecore website, all communication happens. We know that when we build page, we get sitecore data. We get sitecore data using get static props function. And we get list of all pages using get static paths function. And these two functions, they are called only on server side. It doesn't matter whether it is static side generation, server side rendering, or incremental static regeneration. In all these cases, the code is executed on server side. It means that actually we don't need this part on client. But as we So from previous slide, Next.js together with Webpack isn't smart enough to identify that this code isn't reachable on client side, and it still is added to final JavaScript bundle. Let's think what we can do with it. So the first idea is to split sitecore-js package code into two parts, into server part and client-side part. It will allow us to import the server-side part where server code is executed and the client-side part in components where we need it. And that's doable, but I'm not an owner of sitecore-js. Sitecore owns its code. It's open source. I can fork it and I can publish my own packages, but it's actually time consuming and I will need to support it and I will need to make changes during each upgrade. So that's an option, but time consuming. The next option is use hacks. So we can change what's inside node modules during build, or we can hard code somehow, but inside node modules. That's also doesn't look so good. And the last option that I choose is using Webpack alias configuration. So Webpack allows us to configure how you want to bundle your JavaScript. And this configuration should be added into Next.js config. And it tells us that if we bundle client side, so if it's not server, then we map GraphQL request, and Axios to some fake modules. And actually, all these GraphQL request.js, GraphQL.js, and Axios.js, they are just empty files. That's enough to make this JavaScript bundleable, and we don't worry about the code itself because it's not reachable on client side. It will not be used. And now let's measure results. Let's measure how many kilobytes can we save. You can see this table. First row, it's start size. It's total size of source code. Second row is part size. It's minified and uglified JavaScript. And last line is gzip size. We are mostly interested in gzip size because that's amount that will be transferred to browser, and then browser will parse it, spend some CPU time, and then browser will execute it. And we can see big result here. So previously it was 28 kilobytes, and now it's a little bit less than 7. So we will be able to decrease sitecore-js size in 4 times, which quite big result for one package. But in browser we have not only one package. As previously we saw, there will be also React, there will be also Next.js. So let's check the whole picture. Let's check it using Lighthouse, my favorite tool for checking performance. And at the left, we see how it was before. And at the right, we see how it is after. So we can compare. We can see that previously it was 130 kilobytes. Now it's a little bit less than 110 kilobytes. So still 20 kilobytes. It's on the size of 100 kilobytes. It's not so big, but it's still 20%, and it's still some network time. It's still some CPU time. And we can see that even Lighthouse score was changed from low to medium. Medium is also not perfect, and there are still room for improvement, but it's some result. And now let's make conclusion. What's next? First of all, you can apply this technique with sitecore-jss package right now into your Sitecore Next.js website, and you will get this measurable improvement. It takes small amount of time, but will give you measurable improvement. If you don't want to do it, you think that it's not very valuable, you still will get it after some time, because Sitecore is aware about this issue and they are working on the optimization. And by the way, here we shouldn't blame Sitecore that they missed this part and they did it wrong. We should remember that sitecore-js package was created, core package was created at the time when there was no Next.js implementation. There was only React, Vue, and Angular, and there was no such division like server-side bundle and client-side bundle. And at that time, they did everything right. Later, Next.js appeared, and that solution could be improved. But at that time, it was absolutely fine. And the last point, what you definitely should do, you need to analyze your client-side bundle, and you need to know what is inside. And probably in your client-side bundle, there will be also something that you don't need and you can remove. And that's how you can improve the performance of your Sitecore Next.js website. So that's all from my side. Here are all resources. This presentation also is available as article, which was published today, and you can read it as text and get all code snippets. And you can access this presentation by scanning this QR code. That's all from my side. I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much, Anton, for this wonderful presentation. I can only imagine how many websites do violate the bundle side. And initially, when you look at the Next.js and the basic idea behind the framework, that's all about optimization, right? But the way how people actually implement it in many cases is far away from the perfection. So I think this presentation you gave us today will help many of us to reduce this performance crime. At least I will definitely use my takeaways from what you shared. If anyone would like to ask the question, please do that.
Just one final thing. So if it will allow you improve your Next.js performance, but if you want to get absolutely lazy and fast website, you need to look to Astro, but that's completely different topic. So
Oh,
now
we all know your skills with doing Astro, and that's indeed very inspiring framework. For those who are not familiar with this framework, first of all, I would like to ask you to investigate on your own. Spend your own time to investigate what are the advantages of this framework and why it is in that way so advantage. Once you find this out, and you will, please refer to Anton's post, because Anton explains how to mate Astro with with Next.js, with our frameworks. And there are plenty of wonderful takeaways from there. And we actually got a question. So question number one, which tools was used for bundle analyzer?
for analysis of next bundle size, there was used official Next.js bundle, and it should be in, oh no, it's not this one. It's not this one. It should be this one. So there is official Next.js bundle analyzer, and it works perfectly with Sitecore. So it was used to analyze and to see what's inside.
Okay, pretty obvious answer, but thank you very much for that. Another question is, do you think if TurboPack will have a better results as well?
As far as I know, TurboPack, one of my colleagues started to use TurboPack, and for now they spent a lot of time on configuring it. So if you want to be on the edge, it's absolutely fine to start with it, but you should take into account that you will need to spend a lot of time on configuring. About how smart it is to define unreachable code, I can't say. I need to make experiment with it. So if anyone will build default Sitecore website, default Sitecore style guide, I will be happy to measure it, and I will be happy to check whether these packages are still present in final bundle, and we'll think how to avoid it if they are still there.
And I think if you're asking this question, TurboPack is coming with the next generation of Next.js. And when it comes to app router, there are plenty of improvements with server-side components, and lots of things are not appear in a bundle at all. So if you're asking about that side of things, please refer to the documentation, please refer to the bloggers. We had a previous recording of Liz Nelson, who presented a really inspiring and informative session about what are the app router considerations for going with Sitecore, where she explains the whole life cycle, how it was before and what happens after. I think it was the first headless Sitecore development user group. All the recordings are available on YouTube. This one will also go to YouTube, and it appears immediately after the call in Sitecore Telegram at the Headless channel, so that you can get it access straight away. So just spend your time for your own investigation. Okay, with that in mind, Anton, thank you very much for being here today. And here we go. XM Cloud Forms. This is something different to what we see before, which we call Sitecore Forms. This is the package that was the package available from Sitecore version 9. And with this composable switch to XM Cloud, the original forms are no longer available for us. The most reason to it was that forms typically need some endpoint to gather the data, which was used content delivery server. That's where the user input submission was gathered into. So with XM Cloud, we do not have content delivery server anymore. So the question was, how do we deal with the forms and what we do in principle? So Sitecore took some time to figure out the best solution for us in the field, what they wanted to give us. They definitely wanted to make a new generation of the forms, something much better than composable forms were. And eventually in January, they came up with this solution. So I'm going to show you it in action right now. Some Cloud Forms. So what you can do with forms here. Obviously, that's a form editor for you to create, modify, update the forms. One of the greatest features you could do here, similar as it was before, you can create multi-page forms. This is really a strong feature. And from my point, yes, you combined with the comprehensive styling, you can do pretty anything with it. The only limitation so far is that you cannot add your conditions. So let's say you cannot do conditional forms when condition B depends on the condition, on the parameters input at the form A, so that you can define whether you want to progress with form B or form C. But that was on a roadmap. They promised us these things, and it will be there. There's lots of documentation available. It's pretty powerful. And basically, I would leave it with you to go through it. The one thing I want you to be aware is if you try to use forms on your existing solutions, you must upgrade to SDK 21.6. And from my experience, I will say that upgrading to 21.6 would be not the easiest walk in the forest, because there were lots of breaking changes, there were lots of improvements, and you see from the number there, it's kind of major version. In any case, once you upgrade to this version and you redeploy it to the cloud, you will be able to benefit from forms. If not, you will see an orange error message once you try to drop the form on the Pages application. So what are the features in the composable forms? First and the most, we have lots of fields. And with the next slide, I will show which fields are available. There are plenty of them, even probably more than you expect. There is template library. And template library is awesome because you can get already predefined and styled forms, drop them into your pages straight away, or do some minor changes with the form editor, test it and drop there. So that minimize amount you want to spend there. There are different UI styles, but what you could also expect is that it should be some sort of a shop experience like Microsoft Shop, like Apple App Store, but the same would be for the forms, where some of the forms would get published and you will be able to benefit from the best breeds that are available from the entire community. All right, so you can use external data sources for pre-populating form. Forms are coming with reporting and analytics tool so that you will see how they perform, and that's really powerful. I already said that you can create multi-page forms, and I'm going actually to show how it all works. Conditional logic is not yet available, sadly. So let's talk about the fields. You see here are all the fields I managed to find there. I also was amazed to see reCAPTCHA there, and it works. It really works. There is a special checkbox for terms conditions. Other than that, you will see everything you would like to get as a part of the solution. There is also a nice field for capturing phone number that has a country code in it and basic set of validation. But regardless of the field type, you will be able to get your own validation to it, and it's pretty powerful. Sitecore recently released one of the most wanted features for XM Cloud, Composable Forms Builder. And today I would like to familiarize you with this new feature. Let's take a look at the main screen of Cloud Portal. From here, I am selecting an environment. I pick up Content Editor. Let's go to the dashboard. And now you see this new icon for Composable Forms Builder. That's a grid that shows all your available forms. So you see the form name, you see the statistics, you see the status, if it's active, if it's draft. You can also create labels so that you will be able to do a filtering by label. You can also do a filter by status. You can search by name. Each of the form has a context menu with these helpful comments. And of course, we have a create new button. Other than that, we have another tab which allows us to create webhooks, but I will cover it separately. Let's create a new web form. I'll try to give it any meaningful name, but there's nothing more meaningful than test universally. So let's give it this name. And now we see the main overall UI where we can edit the forms. On the left hand side we see 3 tabs. One is for layout. Everything you see here is nicely draggable to the main canvas. When it comes to layout, we have 6 predefined options, whether we want to go with the full width layout or if we want to have column layouts. There are different options. Whichever we prefer, we just drag it and drop it to a page. The main tab is called items. It contains of 2 major sections, fields and basic. Basic has some elements that are non-interactive for the UI capture purposes. For example, text, which might be a label, it can be image, space, anything, right? When it comes to fields, that is actually the fields that do capture the user input. The most famous is probably short text, which is here. There are other useful fields, you may see them all here. Probably all the possible elements we can only imagine are presented here. There is another section that is very much intriguing. It's called custom. There is nothing inside, but because we have this session, I have an assumption that sooner or later we will be able to export some custom elements which will be able to drag to the canvas here. Something similar to how bring your own component works for the component builder. Anyway, let's take a look at the canvas. So I dropped the text field here and we see it selected. On the right hand side we see the context panel for this particular field. There's lots of things we can control, almost everything. So first of all, we have the main label that is available above the input. We have input itself, so we can provide a placeholder value which is displayed in gray. We also can do prefill value. The difference is that it basically, the value while placeholder is simply the gray watermark, giving you hint what to input into this box. There are also 2 checkbox. One is to make this field hidden. So yes, you can do hidden fields with the form. And another is for required. But at this stage, I would like to beware you from selecting both them together like I've done now, because that traps you into the deadlock. So guess what happens? If I make this field required, that means that I won't be able to submit the form without entering input into this field. But if I make it hidden, then I will not be able to enter anything. The whole field, including the validation message, will get hidden from my eyes. And because I cannot control it and it's required, I cannot progress with the form. So hopefully developers will make this fixed at some stage. Okay, we also have validation here, which is done in the form of regular expression. You can create an irregular expression which will prevent users from filling unwanted data. In the same manner, we can limit the characters, we do paddings, like lots of other styling options here, fill styles. You can get the color, for example, something like that. That's the border you see. Anyway, you can control almost any aspect of the form from this context menu. And if you're carefully watching the screen, you may ask, but wait, there is another style in top left-hand side. What is that for? And the difference is that right-hand side styling applies to the currently selected field. So this panel is kind of context panel to what is selected here. At the same time, this applies to the entire canvas. For example, I can do change the background color here. I selected black, let it be slightly yellow, and you see this color applies to the whole canvas and to the all segments. So that's the difference. Let's go back to white. You also see here lots of other useful elements, and in general the overall UI reminds me pages, application page builder from the XM Cloud. That same nice UX, UI, and I would call it a premium quality because I really like the quality of this product. Interestingly, that XM Cloud Forms, they derive from sitecore-js, which is Moosend product. Of course, they took the forms from sitecore-js and they make it much more advanced than they are in the original product. But look here what we can do. We have reverse and forward button. We have versions automatically saved upon a timer. And of course, you will be able to switch between versions from this panel. You see the panel with these different options. You can do preview, you can leave comments. The main one selected is editing. Settings is something I'm going to show you at the end. This looks familiar from the Pages application, exactly the same. It's called devices or breakpoints, how old school designer love to call them. So you can switch between different widths for different devices. That's how you make sure your form performs under various viewpoints. This label shows the current status of the form. So current is draft, which means it's not seen anywhere, it's not published. The published state is called active, and we've seen it initially when I loaded the main screen. There were two forms in active state. So in order to make this form visible externally, it must be published into active stage. Okay, one of the great features that I love here indeed is a template library. So template library has some sort of preset UI and UX with forms which you can use, and you can customize them. You can share them between your colleagues and between your team. You can also browse predefined items. And there is expectations some of forms will get shared in future. So I picked up this form. You see it's styled and did very nicely. It has 3 fields: full name, email. This is the phone number. It's a dedicated field. I would call it composite because it has the text field specifically tailored for phone number. So it will validate the phone number. And it also has this country drop down, allowing users to pick up the desired country. CTA button, and the nice overall layout with the background image. let's see how it performs on the mobile, and it performs pretty nice. I like it. So other than that, I would like to show you another awesome feature of Forms Builder, and that is called multi-page. What you can do, you can build forms like wizards. When you have one screen, then you click button and it takes you to another screen, and then so on and so forth until you get to the final screen. So at some stage there will be also conditional screens. Let's say you have a drop down here, and depending on the value you select from this drop down, you will get one or another following derived screen. This is not implemented with the current state of Forms, so you can only have multi-page. So let's add another page. So you see it is number 2, it inherited the same layout, and there are already 3 placeholders in a similar manner like we have here. So what I suggest, let's make here reCAPTCHA. Let's select reCAPTCHA here. And for this placeholder, I would probably select terms and conditions. And I don't need the third placeholder at all. Let's delete it. Please take a look at this back button. It's done automatically for you. If you are not on the first stage, you will get this button. On non-final stage, you will see next button rather than submit. So this form looks pretty valid to me. I would like, at this stage, I would like to save it and activate so that it changes draft state to the final state. And my assumption is that as soon as I click activate button, it will work, but no. And this is a validation for reason. I made the form, but I did not provide the webhook. What is webhook? Why do we need webhook here? Let's go back a little back in time to XP. Also had Forms editor, but with XP, the difference was that once you submit the form, you click submit button. The form posted the data back to your content delivery server, where you could have linked to specific database for the forms, where all the user-generated input was captured. However, with XM Cloud, we do not have content delivery server. Even more than that, developers of XM Cloud Form, they intentionally did not create any SaaS provided storage for you to get this submission collected. So what they have done instead they allow you to customize and create a webhook. So webhook in fact is just a request that takes the data from whatever you submitted in the forms. All your data that been submitted previously, it is called payload. So payload is something that comes along with the request in the form of fields, and it posts that data to whichever URL you provide. So let's do that. Let's do that now. And for the sake of this experiment, I created a request bean here. So there is no request. What request bean does is it will create an endpoint for me. Let me see. Okay, it will create an endpoint. This is URL of this endpoint. I can copy it. So whichever requests come to this endpoint, it will be shown here. So it's basically a trap for any custom webhook. So I copy this address, and I would like my form to submit to this address. So let's manage webhook. Let's create a new one. First of all, we see there are different types of authentication. I think all the possible combination of authentication are provided here. API key, basic, with username, password. In my case, I don't need authentication at all. I only do a post request to this URL, and I would like to give it a meaningful name. It will be a temporal webhook. Let's save it and select it from here. Okay, other than webhook, what I can do at this stage is I can choose what the form will do upon the completion. So one of the options is redirect. We can redirect to a home page, we can redirect to, let's say, any external website, and lots of other redirects we can do here. Other than that, what we can do is we can display success message. So success message is a rich text. It has color, it has typography, fonts, all that. So I would like to show it here. I make it italic. And of course we can do nothing. So basically if we select nothing, nothing will happen upon the form submission. In my case, I would like to display this message. So as soon as I create a webhook and I selected the webhook, now I can publish the form. I do save and activate. So I get this confirmation message saying that if I activate the web form, I will not be able to go to designer any longer. No design changes will happen. So basically it becomes a read-only form. Yes, that's what I want. Now I get back to the main interface. Now I see my form and it's been published. It is in an active state. I can get into the form. I can only do preview here and settings. So what I would like to show you at this stage is one of the really greatest features of these form editors is test webhook feature. So it allows you to see your form right in the same way as you will get it embedded into your website, whichever composable website or composable solution you would like to do. It will be likely a headless website, maybe your XM Cloud, Next.JS application, like whatever you choose. So that is how the form will look like. And it allows you to play it in action exactly in the same manner as it works on production. So I give it a name, I give it an email. So I assume the validation should happen because the email is not in the right format. I select the phone number. I click next. And exactly that happens. A validation message shows me that email does not match the desired format. Let's give it right value. So once I click the button, I get to the second screen. And that is actually a bug because I specified the label for terms conditions. There was definitely a label saying that I accept terms, but for some reason it's not displayed here. And let's pick up the bicycles. One more. Now traffic lights. Okay, eventually it recognized me as a human. So once I click this button, I get this preview screen. This screen shows me, first of all, the payload that comes to the request. It contains all my input. This is my name, this is my email, this is the phone number, also the checkbox, recapture, and the other values. Also, it shows me all the request headers that will be sent along with my request. So everything you see here will be captured. Once I click submit button, I expect that request will appear here, and we will be able to see and validate all these fields and all these headers there. Okay? Boom. I am getting this message And remember, I made it italic, so it shows me exactly as I wanted. I indeed received this request. So I see 11 headers. All right, I see body. Body has that same fields as I provided. That's my name, that's my phone number, email, like all the bits. There is IP address being used, and bunch of other helpful pieces of data. So that works. We created the form, we styled the element, we provided the validation, we also wired up the form to a webhook, which we also defined. And we tested the webhook, we make sure that all the fields are captured and the request comes to the valid endpoint, provide all this valuable payload of information, all the fields and all the required information. And it actually works. So far so good. The form is published, you see it's an active state. So the next question comes is, how can we use it? What's the use of this form? So first thing comes into mind where we can use it. Why not to use it with Exam Cloud? And again, the first obvious decision would be to go into the Pages application and see what we can do there. So I have this basic skate park website, and what I want to do, I want to find the form and drop it somewhere in between this image and this block. So I have this component tab under which I have forms, and it shows me all the published forms. So we remember that my form has the very meaningful name test. What I do is I just drag drop it. I select the right placeholder and drop it. Nothing could be simpler than that. I get this form entirely nicely fill into the block, full width, all the fields, everything. Wonderful. There is one important bit, however, I want to notify at this stage. Your website must be running the rendering host, which is based on Headless SDK 21.6 or newer, because that's the SDK that get this support for composable forms. If you try to do that with early application, once you drag the form into the Pages application, you will see an orange block saying that something goes wrong. There will be a message that form is not found. Okay, so looks nice, I like it. How about Experience Editor? Let's go there and check. I have this site, homepage, Experience Editor. Once that loads, we scroll down and boom, we have these forms. Looks nice. In Experience Editor, there is something called Bring Your Own Component Wrapper. So this component wrapper allows you to consume some components done by external tools so that you can use them along your Experience Editor. And let me show you one trick how it actually gets wired. If you go to component properties, you will see that Bring Your Own Component references component name form, and it also provides a parameter of form ID. So you see 3A to A6. So once I go back to forms, this is my test form, and that's the ID, 3A to A6. So that's the ID of the form, and that is how they actually get wired together. Let's go to preview. I'll try to do the same exercise here. And it perfectly works right in the preview of Experience Editor. I'm getting this italic message, and I'm receiving another request with this data. So that's really great. I'm already impressed by the capabilities of this new Cloud Forms editor, but what if I raise the bar to even higher level? Well, challenge accepted. So we tried these forms in the Pages interface, but we also have another application, which is Components Builder. Okay, so let's take a look what we can do here. Let me go to default collection, and I will add a new component. I give it a name form tester. All right. First of all, I want to display H1 here, saying that it is XM Cloud Components Builder with a form. Nice. I'm adding another element, and look what I've got here. I've got a form. So I select a form, I drop it below, so it shows me that sitecore form is non-configured here, and immediately suggests me selection from all the 3 forms I have published here. So if you remember, I have 3 forms so far: test, new form, and sample. And I get these 3 here: new form, sample, and test. The form I was doing before is called test. So I select this form, I can customize it, there's lots of different options here. I can even wire it to data source. Anyway, at this stage I am only interested to see if it works in principle. So I stage it and I publish. Yes, please publish. All right. So let's get back to Pages application and see what we have. Typically, components that are done here, they are displayed in this section along with forms. So there is the form which we've done previously, but this is the collection, default collection I have here. This maps to the collection from the Components Builder. And if I open this default collection, I see form tester. That's the same component I just created. So let me drop it to the same location, which is the full width main. And boom, you see what I've got here? I have a component that has 2 elements, and one of the elements is the form which I created in the form. Okay, so let's go to Experience Editor and see if it works there. Amazing. That's my component, and you see it uses different wrapper. That is called Frontend as a Server wrapper. This is a wrapper that you are using an Experience Editor to display components that are built with this components interface. So you use bring your own component for forms, and you use Frontend as a Server wrapper for that component. Once again, if I go here, I see library ID and I see component ID in the properties, which are these values. Anyway, let's go to preview mode and see if it works. One thing I noticed here is that the styles for the button have changed, so it looks differently, and I'm wondering why. What exactly affects the styling? Yes, the form has been submitted, and there is a new request just a minute ago here. At this stage, I can only conclude that developers made amazing work. I hope I managed to persuade you that composable forms are really that much impressive with the XM Cloud. However, there are some bits that I would call them child sickness, okay, which I would like to share in a minute. There's nothing critical, and I'm pretty sure the development team will fix it with time. So one of the things is the context switcher. Let me show you in action. So let's say I have this different environment. So if I go to my specific environment, it's called test. I go to forms from here. It will show me the set of forms for that particular environment, right? So if I go to another environment, I will still keep watching the same set of things. So there is no kind of visual form switcher if I try to access it by URL. I'll show you in a second. So let's say I go to another instance. I go to pages, and it loads me different environment. So this is a Tailwind website, so it's totally different, but shows me the same set of components. So the context of the environment kind of stuck. I believe that is done because it's set some persistent storage in my browser, maybe local storage, maybe likely local storage, but it could be another record. So in order to actually switch to this environment, what I have to do is I need to go back here and either select forms from dashboard or select it from here, and then I will get the context switched. So you will see a different set of forms here, right? So another thing that I think must be fixed so far is that once I get active form, I cannot delete this form. So at least I did not find any way how I can delete active form rather than delete the environment from XM Cloud. So this is inactive form, and I can clearly delete this inactive form, right? You see it's gone. But what do I do with this one? I don't know. So there is no way to unpublish it. There is no way to like changing it to the back to inactive state or to the draft state, and there is no way to delete it. If I check here and I do delete, nothing happens because it tells me form cannot be deleted because only draft forms can be deleted. But at the same time, there's no way how I can transfer this form to the draft state. And one of the things that actually you cannot do so far is you do not have the file attachment field. You have a really rich variety of fields you can use with the forms, but you cannot upload your file. And the reason to it is that, guess which one? You are calling the webhook. And with webhook, it's a little bit difficult to provide a file. I mean, yes, you can include the binary flow into the your HTTP request, you are doing posts, so far so good, yeah, but like for the initial stage, developers decided not to include that. Maybe they will add at a later stage, but it will have some limitations, maybe limitation in site, maybe limitation in file types, but not at this stage. Okay, regardless of all these minor things, I think the overall quality of the product is very top level. You have the premium quality animations, you have all the things designed and thought well in advance. Once developers fix this child sickness, it will be the part of our daily development, which we will highly rely to. So I want to thank you, everyone who managed to get it to this point. That concludes my presentation. And let's go to the questions. Each of the components done with this application, you don't know that, but you actually can serialize them. So I managed to serialize them into a file on my hard drive and deserialize them back to this component interface. Basically, if you have them on file drive, what that means, you can take it somewhere else to another organization and you can deserialize it there. So you get this component reproduced, right? That also means that you can generate a bunch of components, get their file counterparts, then throw it into some AI tool and teach this AI tool and say, now basically this file maps to this component, this file maps to this component, so that next you would be able to get a human prompts into that AI and it will generate this type of serialization because it's trained to. And then with that serialization, you can just deserialize that component right here and you will get it. Probably Sitecore will take it from there and they will totally omit this step with deserialization. They do it kind of as pre-built tool, so you don't need to bother with the files. You just type in what you want to do and it will generate the form, component. But why I'm saying that, since components are external tools that operate through these IDs, if you open any form, you will find, if you open any component, you will find the component ID, right? And since the form operates by the same principle, I have belief that I can do the same type serialization and deserialization with the forms as I do it with components. At least that is my best guess, okay? If it does not work with the forms, you can do a very not nice workaround. You can get the form into component, exactly as I showed you in this demo, and then you can serialize component having this form. Hopefully that will restore that and it will work. There's another bug I found with the forms editor. It was actually related to the webhooks. So if I go to webhooks editor, so this shows me webhooks with this environment. If I want to add a webhook, I give it some name. Let's say I give it test. And I fail to create webhook. Why? There's no test here. There's no test webhook. The answer is that there is webhook called test, but it belongs to another environment. For some reason, it's not quite obvious, and there is some sort of collision between these webhooks, between the environments, but they don't show us in the UI. So this type of things. So maybe that would be some sort of collision with the components. But anyway, I give you my best guess how I would approach that. I think I will create a blog post showing how to serialize forms and how to deserialize forms, if that is possible in principle. At least I will show you that for components. Okay, go to the next question. Can we display success fail message based on webhook response? And that is, I think that is exactly what it does. So the success fail message, it shows the result of webhook. So if for some reason webhook fails to get there, then you get fail. Or probably you're asking if
my question is,
if
let's
submission
say,
was okay, but something
Yeah.
else was different, right?
yeah.
So you want to delegate validation from the forms to wherever this webhook posts to. So basically, you throw that webhook to external system. Let's say that would be some CRM, right? From the forms point, the form was submitted correctly. All the fields are valid, but CRM does additional check and throws it away. That was the question.
Yep.
I don't know. The short answer is I don't know that.
Okay.
Let's guess. Let's guess. The way webhook works, it basically throws the HTTP request to the caller, and it displays the status of that request, right? So if your external caller can get the request, analyze what the content was submitted, so see something you get with the payload, and do the response with relevant HTTP status code different than 200, okay? Then then the composable XM Cloud Forms will obviously get the things are wrong, and it will say the submission is false. So again, I don't know the exact answer, and this is really a good question you asked. But my best answer is that yes, that should be possible, and that pretty depends from the caller.
Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead. Eva, you have a question. Can you simply add class names to your form element styling instead of hard-coding alignment from callers? I believe that should be possible from the interface. And you see what you saw actually when I used the last example. My buttons at the very end, they have changed. So they changed the style to just be black rectangle buttons, which means they have inherited styles from the page. So that leads me to the thought that all types of transparent style passing from the page to the component to form itself are possible. The question would be, how do you manage the weight? So, like with CSS, the more specific selector you do, the higher weight it has, and because of the weight, it has priority. So I think you should done it in that way that styles passed from the components from the forms editor should take the higher priority. They should be more specific. Again, this is my best guess. I don't know the right answer.
So Martin, do we get any sandbox kind of environment so that we can do some hands-on on forms? Is it possible? Or we need to talk to Sitecore on that?
Can you rephrase the question?
So I'm asking, is it possible to get a sandbox environment to check how forms works, to do some hands-on?
Yes, so speaking about the forms and the license, you clearly see that it comes as a part of your subscription. So this is my subscription within my organization. I have access to PAR. So as soon as you get access to your XM Cloud environment, so you see all the applications as a part of that particular environment, like pages, forms, whatever. And components is not listed here because components have a scope. They have wider scope than environment. Components are they transitional through, I think, your project or subscription in terms of organization entirely. So if you have access to here, then you get your forms just at no extra cost as a part of your organization subscription license.
So you showed us a sample webhook, but on real scenario, where will you save your data? So you will have Sitecore website, you will have forms, but you need something extra for saving data. What would you prefer for it?
Thank you for this question. This is really important one. What I want to say is that maybe I was not explicit with my explanation, but that was done by intent. Developers did not include any UI for the forms, neither they included any storage where you can capture the forms. That was done for the compliance purposes, so that with forms you typically get lots of PII information, personal identifiable information, which may violate compliance like GDPR and similar. So not to be responsible for storing and capturing this information, they basically give you the choice. So you choose where you submit your data. I, for example, decided to use this webhook trap, the basic one. You would probably want to use your form into your external system. The first thing that comes into my mind would be CRM or CDP. CDP probably would be the better thing. So I can plug it to Sitecore CDP. All the context and payload goes there. I can associate it with specific contact. And the rest, what comes beyond CDP, is another compliance responsibility other from outside of this Sitecore Forms application. You may be in a less regulated environment and industry. In that case, you can do whatever you want, but the choice is yours. Like once again, unlike XP, where they did content delivery server that was responsible for capturing your input and placing it into Forms database by default, where you can access all your form capture from the UI. There's no such thing any longer, which means whichever you prefer.
Okay, thank you. And another question. Previously in sitecore forms, there was a great granular control over each field. So we were able to write our own fields using React. We were able to bring some, for example, material UI for our fields if we want. In the case of Cloud Forms, is it a step back like to web forms for marketers, where we just have predefined fields and we no longer have these great abilities to customize?
I got a question, and I think it's also another valid question. Probably if you watched my presentation carefully, you noticed this section called custom, which is empty. So we got the basics. These are the elements you can drop here that do not carry on any input, like image, text, spacer, something that is element of UI, which you simply display, right? Even social media buttons you can do here. Then you have predefined fields with all the things like reCAPTCHA, checkbox, so something that user interacts with. And you have this custom section, which is empty. My best guess is that this is done in advance for us to be able to bring our own fields. I expect we should be able to do specific forms extensibility by bringing our own functionality. And yes, I think that would be done in a form of React component or something like that. Once again, if we go to the component editor, that's already done there. Remember from my presentation, when I did add element, I did forms, but it comes from external element section where you have a component. So this is what is called front-end as a server component. You can register your custom React component and bring it, register it with the components app so that it's will be available from here. You drag and drop to canvas and then you select which components you've done. And with that in mind, you will be able to use it like any basic element from this list. Okay, same as we do with forms here. I expect that they will do similar functionality with these forms, and we will be able to see it from custom. Again, this is first release of composable forms. Development team has made really, really great job to make it happen. And I see it's like a big milestone already. Give them some time, they will fix all these child sicknesses first. Then they will bring your custom custom actions for the multi-page. They will allow you to define which of these scenarios you will go next, depending on the input from the first one. And then they will probably allow us to do these fields. I don't know. I'm not in charge of roadmap. I don't work for Sitecore. I only wanted to show you what they've done so far.
And that was a nice presentation, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure to share things with you. So in that case, that concludes our fourth Sitecore Headless Development user group. I'm always welcome new speakers if you are those willing to share your expertise or maybe some basic experiments you've done in the headless world or exemplar world. Please always reach out to me. I would be happy to host you here. There's one more thing I would like to introduce from the next events, and that would be Roundtable. So what is Roundtable? This would be kind of a collaborative panel where we all talk through different things. Let's say you have some problems at your day-to-day work project and you want to bring it to the wider discussion. You can come to this event and share your questions. We collectively will try to respond to it with the best of our knowledge. This is something I want to introduce from the next meeting, and we will see how it works. But with that in mind, I have to thank you everyone for coming here today. Thank you, my friends, and I wish you the best remaining of the day. Bye-bye.